Okay, so for our next presentation, our presenter has been involved in alternative science research for quite a long time, going back probably even before the Borderland, or at least when he was involved with the Borderland Science Research Foundation with Eric Dollard and some others, and he had been involved with actually helping to publish and authoring books and videos that are some of the classics that probably a lot of you know about, that you can find on YouTube, on our own websites. And he had actually known John Bedini sometime back in the 80s, visited maybe a couple of his labs down in California to document some of Bedini's work on the Cromray generator, which is, I believe, the horizontal shaft one. And in about 2004 or so, somewhere around there, Peter moved down to the Spokane area from northern Washington to work with John Bedini for about a year, and that was during the development of a lot of the commercially available battery chargers, rejuvenators, and solar charge controllers that were developed at John Bedini's company back then. And he has been involved in everything from not only alternative energy, health and consciousness, and a lot of different topics. And a lot of you, if you're kind of new to this, probably see that a lot of these topics kind of go together because you can't really separate them, and a lot of us that are into this are interested in all of those. This motor right here is called a glass case motor, and in 2015 John Bedini brought this out into the public for the first time. Not this one, but the one he actually had in a glass case, to the Hayden Eagles Lodge downtown, and demonstrated it, but still he had never really revealed any details about it. He let people look at it, and if people didn't ask any questions about it, he didn't really volunteer any information about what it actually was. So we kind of know, at that time, kind of knew some of the details, and then of course, as you know, he passed in November 2016, and we thought we would never see it again, and we're very grateful to John Bedini's family for letting Peter Lindemann and I investigate this maybe around March over on the Seattle side. Did our best to document it. Peter has a much stronger grasp of a lot of the principles than most people, because he spent quite a bit of time with John and knows a lot of the in and outs and a lot of the history that a lot of people do not know about John Bedini's past and where these kind of ideas come from. But this is a perfect, Mike Clark's presentation on air core motors, kind of the perfect segue into this presentation, because this is kind of where it all started, or at least one of the starting points for John. So please help me welcome Peter Lindemann.
We have never heard the name of this machine. We called it the glass case motor because it was the motor that was in the glass case. But John called it the gravity wave space flux motor. And we found that out after he died. And in a box, we found a manuscript. He was writing a book on this, and it was unfinished. And Aaron is in the process of compiling and finishing this book, and that book is going to become available. And so our project to replicate and learn everything we could about this is all part of this project. So this is step one of an ongoing disclosure about what this technology is, where it come from, and where it can take us. So here's John in 2015 demonstrating the motor for the first time in public. It was quite a day. I remember we had brown paper over this thing, and we just was brought in. It looked like a little brown box, and he ripped the paper off, and he talked about it for a while and ran it for people. I had seen this motor running in his office, in his lab. upstairs, usually above the lab floor, in many of the buildings where he had a lab at the time in Coeur d'Alene. This was among a series of machines we simply called the museum, because what John did in his learning process, he never, ever took a working machine apart to use the parts for the next experiment. He built something. If it worked, he put it on the shelf. And if he wanted to try something just even slightly different, he built another one and another one and another one. He had the largest museum of working machines I have ever seen from any inventor. So the source materials for this presentation go back to the beginning of where these ideas come from, which are rooted in the prior work of Joe Newman. I also lean pretty heavily into John's unfinished book manuscript, which I have had access to, and measurements taken from the original machine, which Aaron said we went and saw in Tacoma, Washington in early March, just before the lockdown. This is the cover of the 8th edition of The Energy Machine of Joe Newman. This is the book that he compiled. This was the last edition before he died. And I draw upon this. The reason I'm presenting this material first is that you will see in Joe Newman's work the beginnings of almost everything that is here. John studied Joe Newman's work. He could never say he was a student of Joe Newman, because if you said that and you hadn't actually visited him, he would tear your head off. In the early days, in the 60s, Joe Newman was, to be polite, a bully. A little machine like this is perturbing the Earth's magnetic field. And there are effects from this. And so everything that is operating within a magnetic field is embedded in the next larger magnetic field, is embedded in the next larger magnetic field, and everything that operates on magnetism is an open system to the greater environment. Here he shows other drawings about how the Earth's magnetic field is interfacing with the sun and so on, and even all the other planets, how the magnetic lines of force from the sun are cutting through at these odd angles. This was Joe's, universal theory of magnetism. Okay, so here we're coming together. He's adding the flywheel. He's showing, the relationship of the coils, the motor coil and the generator coil. Frame. And again, he's showing himself the spins of the field spins around the wires and how they're relating to the rotor as it moves by. Same thing here, the spins around the wires, spins around the wires, spins around the wires. Yeah, and what's happening as we have gotten deeper into the batteries, when we started, you could see basically just just what seemed like a random fluctuation of the numbers on the digital screen, like you were just running into a standard digital sampling, rate of fluctuation against when the thing was firing. So that would look random. But after a while, what started happening was that you could see this very slow sine wave of values going through what the meter was reading. In other words, a much slower, easy to sample voltage fluctuation in the batteries.